everybody. Welcome to the show. You know where you are, the 9 at 9 with me, Tigo. And you know it's time for a VIP expert. And if you've been watching the calendar and schedule at all, you know it's time for us to talk to Michelle and Evans. And this month, let's see, we already talked about creating and connecting with your dream client. We already talked about the power of podcasting in the first place this year. Now we got them back. You know, I love the month of March, in like a lion, out like a lamb. Now we got them back to talk about how do you grow your podcast? So sit right there. We'll be right back.
Expert Talk is sponsored by Pod Nation TV, the podcast to broadcast network.
Yep. I hear you. You say, Tigo, I started my podcast. I know who my dream client is. I've got all of 50 of them watching me or listening to me every time I go on. How do I grow this thing? I want to get to 1 million. I want to be like Oprah, what Evan said back in January. How do I do it? How do I grow my podcast? So you know what I did? Well, you know what day of the month it is. So you know what I did. I asked Michelle and Evans to come back and tell us just how to grow our podcast. Hey, y'all, how do we do this?
Hey, Tigo, how are you doing?
Hey.
I'm good. How are you guys?
Great. Love it. Thanks for having us here.
Thanks for being here. All right, who's going to tell me how to grow this thing? I mean, you know, if you have 15 loyal followings and you're really proud of them, half of them are your cousins, mom and dad, and friends and family. But how do you grow it, like publicly grow your podcast?
Do you know what's funny, Tigo, is that statistically, the number one way to grow your podcast still, believe it or not, is word of mouth. Isn't that crazy? Wow. In this day and age of all these ads and all these fancy things, it's still word of mouth that grows podcasts the fastest. And so our goal, and Evans and I help our clients, is to how can we help them get in front of more people, connect with more people. One of the ways I love doing it in my podcast is partnerships and collaborations. And that's with my guests and with my audience. So ways to connect. And I love getting in front of other people's audiences and sharing. So myself going and guesting on other shows, leading them back to my show. Plus, when I have guests on my show, I love connecting with them and collaborating with them, maybe running a workshop, all sorts of great things. And in fact, that's how Evans and I met, was through a podcast interview 2 years ago.
Now, see, I heard you guys met at the county fair. Just kidding.
It's been a while since I've been to one of those. It's been a while. No, I was going to say, you know, I love that too. And, you know, this is sort of where I made my name, from the monetizing and the growth, because of the business I was in. We created a 7-figure podcast and then ended up selling the business, selling the podcast. But one of the things that we did that most people found very interesting was that organically, using some of the methods Michelle was talking about, but organically, we grew the podcast to, at one point, we were 150,000 downloads every month on average. Nice. So eventually we got to like 4.5 million before I ended up leaving the show to go out and teach my methods, but it's all organic. And here's the thing that people won't tell you. Most people are focusing on the wrong thing, right? They're pouring water into a cup that has tiny little leaky holes. And as we know, that's going to take a lot of work to keep filling that cup and filling that cup. And what I'm talking about is focusing all your energy on social media. What we did that was different was we actually focused on content, right? Content like video, which is important, because guess what? Video content and podcasts are. They're evergreen. Yeah. Right. So what we did was we actually went out proactively. You have to be proactive. That's step number one. You can't sit back and wait for the Apple gods to give you listeners, right? You need to be proactive, like what Michelle was saying, but you also need to be proactive and think, where do my ideal dream clients hang out? Mm-hmm. And what we did was we actually created written content, put it in front of them, embedded our podcast episodes into that content, And guess what else? That was evergreen, just like the podcast, just like the video. And then we supplemented with social media, but creating ways
social media is not primary.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Secondary, because it's like filling a cup that has holes in it, right? You're constantly, because when it hits the news feed in Facebook, if it doesn't get engagement, it drops off the face of the earth in no time. If it does get engagement, it still gets out of people's faces and they don't see it for a while. So you want to create assets that are evergreen, that will continue to grow over time, and they stay out there, right? Like Michelle said, getting on other shows, being interviewed on other podcasts, on the right ones that bring the right people to your show. All of that is evergreen. And over time, instead of having to keep filling your cup, you got to get bigger and bigger cups, because you're just pouring and pouring and pouring, and it keeps growing and growing and growing.
I love that. I love that. So for a person who is sitting at home and they're going, I got a podcast. I started it when you guys talked about it. And I started out, I was doing it once a week. And then the baby got sick. And then I had something happen at work. And then, I got 3 new clients and they took up a lot of my time, because some of the stuff I sold, I kind of knew it, but I had to learn it a little bit better. So I had to go and do research because they wanted a little bit more. So now it's the 3rd or 4th week in March, and I think I did an episode this month. How important is it to be consistent and on time?
Yeah, I'll take this one. And I think that it's really important to be consistent, because what you're doing is conditioning your audience to trust you, because you're consistently producing the content. So I'll just share a story. When I was a new listener, I was so excited every Monday morning when that podcast would drop. I put my earbuds in, put my son in a stroller, go for a walk, and I consume this content I was so excited about. If that podcaster didn't put out that content, I would have been pretty mad at her.
Yeah. And here's something I'll share along with that too, because Michelle and I see this all the time, right? Give yourself some grace. If something happens, life happens. One of my favorite clients, who's also one of my coaches that works with us, had something happen in her personal life and didn't do the podcast for a while, came to us like, do I have to start all over again? And we're like, no, we put together a relaunch strategy, created all this momentum again, get those listeners back, get people that are still your loyal listeners to be excited, and word of mouth, share it, and just relaunch it. Right. So that's a great way. Give yourself some grace. But as Michelle said, it's really important that consistency establishes trust, which then turns into leads and clients for your business once you build that trust.
One of the best
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the best things you can keep consistent, if you think that you're going to, miss an episode or something, republish an old episode, one that did really well. Just because your content was published last year doesn't mean it's still not relevant today. And we should re-promote it out on social, or republish it. You can add a little bit at the beginning of it and just say why you're republishing it again. So just an idea.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I see our 2-minute warning. I swear Alan cuts the time down because it can't go that fast. But I'm sitting here going, just do it. I know it's a Nike slogan, and please don't send me a royalty thing for saying that. But really, I think, in my opinion, just do it. I wasn't doing this 2.5, 3 years ago, sitting in front of a camera. I've always sat behind one and produced shows. And now that I'm doing it, I know I'll do it for the rest of my life. And you just got to get over that hump, that fear that I got to be perfect, just get over that hump, because the more real you are, because this is all of me, the more real you are, the more people follow. That's my personal experience. They don't want to see somebody fake. They want to see the real person, right?
Action.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, before this man cuts us off, please tell them where to go to find out how to grow their podcast.
Well, as we've shared, every month we have this free masterclass where we teach you the podcast sales machine blueprint. We're going to help you share how you can get launched the right way with a sales process in place and a growth strategy. And if you are a coach, consultant, course creator, expert, and you're looking to sell high ticket on autopilot, with your own podcast virtual ATM, then this is the place to be. So it's podcastsalesmachine.com, podcastsalesmachine.com. We got a free ticket waiting for you, and we'd love to see you in the VIP upgrade for some one-on-one coaching where we can solve some problems and get you some momentum in your business.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. And you guys already know, if you didn't catch that URL, that domain name, then go to Tigo Direct. You'll find our buddies Evans and Michelle out there. Just click. They'll welcome you in. They're awesome people. They're our podcast experts. I'm so appreciative for them to come and hang out with us this month. You guys are the best.
Thanks for having us.
You too, Tigo. Thank you.
Thanks for being on. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you really will come back next time, because I'm trying to grow my podcast too. And as always, I'm Tigo. I'll talk to you next time.